Founded in 1977 in or near back of the Yards, New City. Affiliations People Nation, 1989, 2000s or later. Colors black and maroon. Primary ethnicities Latino, Mexican. Symbols 5-pointed cross with circles on each point. Playboy bunny facing left with 5 dots in his ear. Cross drawn after the word players is drawn. And hatchet. Status active. The party player's history can be told in 2 parts. The first part begins in the year 1976 when Capone organized a party crew that would be called Party Players. Some other original members were Joe, Pete Gonzalez, Lil Dice, and Tiny P. The crew formed in the Marshall Square neighborhood, the intersection of 24th Place and Washtenaw. The original Party Players were not a gang-banging crew. Instead, these were guys that loved to travel around the South Side and go to different parties. They especially partied with the K-Town party people along 26th Street, in the Little Village neighborhood. Even though the Party Players were surrounded by Satan disciples from 24th and Washtenaw, 24th and Rockwell, the Satan disciples still permitted the Party Players to hang out at the corner because they were not about gang life and they drew women to the area. The Party Players loved to travel down 24th Street and party, and this led them to hang out in the 24th and Marshall Boulevard area, which was Latin King territory. By the later part of 1977, Satan disciples found out about this and began gangbanging against the Players. Since the Players were only a party crew, they did not have the firepower or the organization needed to fight the bigger gang, so they decided to mostly relocate to the back of the Yards community at 48th and Racine. After the Party Players moved, Joe took over as the leader of the Players, but they remained a party crew. Some Party Players remained on 24th Street, but I do not know how long, but it may have lasted until the early to mid to 1990s. At some point, Players expanded into Little Village at 27th to 28th and Holman, but I am not sure about the dates of this section. In the year 1981, Joe became incarcerated for murder after he was defending someone he was close to against a drug dealer. After he went to prison, the Party Players, many of the original members and first generation left the organization once this original member was fully convicted in 1982. While in prison, Joe attempted to bring the Party Players into the Folk Alliance, but on the streets, the Party Players rejected this, but Joe himself aligned with the folks. I am not sure if any other incarcerated Party Players were folks in prison in the 80s or not. In the summer of 1982, the Party Players had relocated to 48th and Wolcott and were at heavy odds with the Saint Street gang because the Saints were giving the older members a hard time in the streets. The Saints had been a full-fledged gang for decades at that point and were well equipped with guns and other weapons. The Party Players then got together with the 47th and Damon 26s, who were an organization that was known to have lots of guns due to their connections with the cartel. Party Players were a more popular and larger group than this section of 26, which made both gangs ideal to be allies to go against the Saints. The 26s would then supply the Party Players with firepower, while the Party Players could provide backup to the 26s with larger numbers. This is when a historic alliance was built between the two organizations. The Party Players then converted their crew into a full-fledged gang in the summer of 1982, however. They did not join the Folk Alliance mainly because they had family members that were Latin Kings. During the 1980s, Party Players would have temporary truces with the Saints due to their close proximity to each other, but the Saints often broke these truces time and time again, causing their resentment to grow toward one another. In the fall of 1988, the 26s and Party Players teamed up to shoot up members of the Saints, which resulted in a murder that caused the leadership of the 26s of the back of the Yards to be incarcerated. Shortly after that happened in 1989, the 26s began applying pressure on the Party Players to flip their entire gang into the 26 organization. At first it was just persistence, but after some time, the 26s became demanding that Party Players flip, and the Party Players weren't having it. This is what started the war with 26. Party Players had too many family ties to Latin Kings, therefore joining 26 could not be done. In the year 1990, Saints made peace with Latin Kings, which brought the Saints into the People Alliance on the streets. Party players also drew closer to the Latin Kings, and both Saints and Party players joined the People Alliance in 1990. The relationship with the Latin Kings was much tighter, making them actual allies, while the setup with the Saints was just a ceasefire that didn't go well. The Party players were now able to spread their influence into the Marquette Park neighborhood at 65th and Spalding, which became the Marquette Park headquarters. As the 1990s progressed, the Party players expanded all over Marquette Park to 63rd and Troy Triggertown, 73rd and Holman, 65th and Sacramento, 63rd and Whipple. The Party players also opened up in the Gage Park neighborhood at 57th and 53rd and Rockwell. Party players opened a section at 36th and Seeley in the McKinley Park neighborhood. Eventually, the vast majority of Party player sections were shut down, including all of their Gage Park and McKinley Park operations. The Party players also closed almost all their territory in Marquette Park, except 65th and Sacramento and 63rd and Troy. They had set up in the suburbs of Burbank, Oaklawn, West Chicago, Plainfield, Joliet, and Rockford, but they closed Oaklawn, Rockford, and Burbank. The Party players engaged in vicious gang wars with the City Knights of nearby 48th and Wood, and also the Satan Disciples. The City Knights ended up flipping to Satan Disciples heavily, and the Party players then moved their headquarters down the street from Wolcott to 48th and Wood, which was the original section of the City Knights. Party players always remained at odds with the Saints, even after the Saints joined the People Nation. The Party players are still active on 48th Street at their newer headquarters at 48th and Wood. Questions. 1. What year was Gage Park opened? 2. What years were the Marquette Park sections opened? 3. What years were the players in McKinley Park? 4. What years was 27th to 28th and Holman opened? Known sections of the Party players past and present. Back of the Yards neighborhood, established 1977. Sections of Back of the Yards, 48th and Wolcott, established 1982, Playertown. 48th and Racine, established 1977. 48th and Wood. East Side neighborhood sections of East Side. 108th and Mackinac, Wolf Park. Gage Park neighborhood sections of Gage Park. 53rd and Rockwell, 57th and Rockwell, 57th and Mozart, Little Village neighborhood 90 sections of Little Village. Holman from 27th to 28th 90s, Marquette Park neighborhood 90s to present year sections of Marquette Park 65th and Spalding. 63rd to 65th, Kedzie to Sacramento, Finntown, Triggertown, 73rd and Holman. Marshall Square neighborhood established 1976 to 90 sections of Marshall Square. 24th Place and Washtenaw established 1976 to 90s. McKinley Park neighborhood 90s. Sections of McKinley Park 36th and Seeley's. Suburbs. Burbank 83rd and Laramie Lockport Joliet. Oak Lawn Plainfield Rockford. West Chicago.